Hello friends, this is Saurabh Sharma. Next topic in line is NGO as part of civil society, and also Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, that why Government of India, Ministry of Home Affairs is cancelling licenses in the name of non-following of procedures and due diligence issued by different departments. For example, income tax department, for example, let's say GST department, or for example, or any other departments where police clearances and have been, and all these issues are actually intermixing. So I thought of taking this topic because you should have a perspective built on this topic, and you should have your opinion while writing this question, or like if it is there in the mains paper too, because it is an aspect of governance in the country. So NGO, what do you understand by NGO? NGO is basically non-governmental organization which is a part of civil society, and we have a clearly mentioned topic in the UPSC mains paper 2 syllabus, that role of civil society in Indian governance. So this NGO as part of civil society is a connecting bridge between the masses and the government machinery. You understand in this manner that we have a huge population. Government of India has limitations with respect to machinery, functionaries, advisories, and those who can work at ground level. So for the Government of India, it is not an easy task to reach to every nook and corner of the country and to serve each and every section of society who have been facing different sets of problems. For example, we have vulnerable sections like women, destitute women, widows. We have in the aspect of human trafficking, drug trafficking, child molestation, child labor, old age issues, and people with disabilities, Divyangjan. So there are many issues, also health, education, environment, many aspects of the society are there which actually needs attention and dedication of government machinery in perspective of funds, functions, and functionaries. It needs to provide a support to the various sections of the society. But is it possible for the Government of India to reach to every nook and corner? No, it is not possible. Therefore, a connecting bridge where the members from society itself, they come together, they collaborate, and they contribute with respect to funds, skills, aspirations, and vision, and they try to adopt the domain under the objective of Government of India, which is basically the social welfare and development of the people. So this is what NGOs are there for. So what NGOs have been doing since 1947? For that matter, in India, somewhere about 3.4 million NGOs are there, and NGOs have been doing a commendable job. Though there are some negative implications of this, the entire domain is, so I'll be discussing later in the video. So let's take a look at what role NGOs have been playing so far. So the first thing is they have been proven a big social changer within the Indian context, because NGOs have given strength, confidence boost up, and skills through the mechanism of skills, fundings, and opportunities to the people who did not even imagine of what a good life could be. For example, when it comes to environmental aspect, Narmada Bachao Andolan have been a very big mass movement name or a banner under which many people who were about to lose their homes and houses due to the dissettlement and dislocation of the big projects in the name of development were finding there, they got a voice to reach to the people of the country and also to the world. They try to discuss and try to include them within the process of development and dividing the fruits of development in that matter. Then these NGOs have worked in the area of poverty alleviation through the modes of charities, contribution of skills, bringing poor people and clubbing them and collecting them and providing them with the basic facilities. For example, in the time of pandemic, first corona wave, where the lockdown was declared so sudden that people could not make out their travel plans. They could not arrange the movement from one place to, for example, bigger cities to their native places. Like a person is going from Delhi to Bihar, one village of Bihar. These 1,000 kilometers of distance was not pre-planned. So, in the absence of no work and no living opportunities and no money, because like it is a matter of earning with hand and eating with mouth, that kind of this hand to mouth relationship is mostly you will be finding at labor class or low level economic strata in the society. So, when this kind of mass movement, mass dislocation is there, so people in India has this tendency of slipping into the below poverty line sooner or suddenly, because it is just a brink of or they are remaining at the verge of changing their economic paradigm from the capable to incapable. So this poverty is an associated factor where this NGOs have been providing them with the basic facilities like food, shelter, clothes, medication, and every other thing which is required, so that they can at least live a life, live a little bit of comfortable life by the time the situation gets normalized. So if poverty is there, its twin sister is hunger. Hunger is always there. So then child and women trafficking, when absence of food, absence of sources of earning is actually coming into the consideration, then the issues of child and women trafficking becomes prominent, because the crime rate starts increasing, and these people belonging to the vulnerable categories are more prone to the crime rates, the crime actions, and such kind of activities in the society. Then in the sphere of healthcare, where the provisions of sanitary pads, provisions of anemic tablets in association with the government of India, in collaborations with the Asha health workers, in collaborations with the Anganwadi members, the facilities have been brought to the doorstep of the people, because like they were not able to afford it, especially during the lockdowns. Then in education aspect, right to education is the fundamental right. Here this education under Sakshar Bharat mission, Saksharta mission, and all those missions which government of India is actually running, it was not at all an easy task. Institutional deliveries was not possible. So NGOs and their volunteers have come up in the rescue or provisions of providing education, at least at basic level, this reading and writing skills for the people belonging to the vulnerable categories. And in the aspect of human rights, where especially in the areas where nuclear plants are being established, where people are actually being dislocated, especially in the tribal areas where they do not know about their rights or whatever the liabilities they can claim over the state, it is not at all clear. So NGOs come in rescue of these people. Then environment protection, as I discussed this in Narmada Bachao Andolan, and where the coal mining is taking place at a very faster pace, especially in the Chota Nagpur belt, Chhattisgarh, this Jharkhand region. So here people's dislocation and this human rights or environmental protection aspect is always there. It is a clubbing factor. Then confidence building, for example, through SHGs, the creations of self-help groups, provisions of institutional credit deliveries, and escaping people or providing them the opportunity to escape from the clutches of money lenders who are, in the name of providing money, they are basically wanting to grab the land, to grab the assets of poor people, and giving them the hardest time ever possible. So these type of things, NGOs are, by becoming their voice and an opportunity or a ray of hope to the people, they are rescuing people in many or the other aspect. If you read about this SHGs, this self-help groups, they have been able to provide a positive image, positive changes in the life of the females, where this thing has not just given them the skills, opportunity of earning, also the confidence required. They are now the decision takers. Their health aspect, for especially IMR, MMR, CMR, all these things, or neonatal mortality rate, for example, they are improving a lot because females are contributing with their skills and they are earning money, and money brings confidence, at least at that level. So this community welfare, etc. So these are the positive changes NGOs have been able to brought down to the people's life. Now, there are certainly issues associated with this aspect. The issue is lobbying. In the name of this provision of protecting people from any kind of deformities of actions due to law implications by the executive at ground level, they are protecting them. But again, these NGOs are also acting as pressure groups, interest groups, and they try to lobby any or the other interest of the stakeholders who have the negative implications towards the process of development in the country. Then political resistance, like via protest, dharna and marches and etc. Funding anti-developmental activities, like in the name of providing good opportunities like education and other aspects. People are trying to do the forceful conversions in the country, especially in the tribal areas and in the northeastern parts, which is actually becoming an issue of disturbing the law and order situations in the country. Then religious conversions, then sponsoring anti-sovereign activities, like providing them with the unaccounted funds, and that is always invested in the anti-sovereign or anti-national activities. Then hurting GDP, according to an estimate provided or inputs provided by the Intelligence Bureau and compiled by the Ministry of Finance, every year, annually, 1 to 2% of GDP is always hurt due to the negative activities or involvement of NGOs in the negative activities against the state's decisions, and providing a hurdle to the process of development in the nation. Then at administrative level, operational level, there are also deformities. For example, the lack of transparency is also found within the structures of NGOs, that where the funds or especially the objectives of NGOs formation is not clear. The activities of NGOs are not in synchronization with the objective what they were made for. Then the transparency, especially in the terms of fundings, that fundings are so channelized that the intended objectives are not being met, and the funding is further given to the NGOs at smaller level, and what they are doing, it is not at all accountable in the books. Then the annual income tax report returns and or other due diligence reports are not being filed on time. So that is why the government of India is finding them opaque, that what sort of actions NGOs are taking and how they are operating at ground level, it is very hard to catch them hold of. So, and when it comes to foreign contribution, this is a law that you need to be registered with the Ministry of Home Affairs, especially after 2010 amendment in the FCRA Act 1976. But those who are not registered, they are not getting direct funding maybe, but those who got the fundings, it is channelized to them. So then it is kind of money laundering activities which is going on in the country, and it is not at all good in the name of NGOs, that in the name of soft activities you are doing the hardest possible activities which might disturb the law and order and integrity of the nation. So here this FCRA issue comes in. Why? Because the FCRA issue provided especially the 2010 amendments and 2018-19 rules, that the NGOs who are registered, they will only get the Foreign Contribution Regulations Act, and they need to file mandatory income tax return with the income tax department. Third thing, they have to mandatorily open a bank account in the central branch of SBI in Delhi itself. And also this FCRA has given the power to Ministry of Home Affairs to cancel the licenses because the national interest and state security could be harmed. So the state security and national interest, These are two important aspects here which is creating a drawback, that in the name of national interest and national security, licenses of such big famed and named NGOs have been cancelled. They were working, which were actually working for the tribal issues, for the environmental issues, for the developmental issues, for the human trafficking issues, and working for the human rights issues. For example, deaths in cell, deaths in custody, custodial deaths, judicial deaths. So these NGOs have been like given a tough time by the Ministry of Home Affairs by not providing them with another extensions or chances of raising their voices against the actions. So here this thing needs to be carefully looked at, that NGOs we require, at the same time we need to have the social national interest and national security, but in the name of national interest and security we cannot blindly cancel the licenses of the big name NGOs who have been able to brought down the positive changes in actual, because Government of India had limitations always in funds, functions and functionaries aspects, but these NGOs have always come in rescue of the issues always been associated with the people at ground level. So outrightly rejecting, not providing them with the opportunity to speak up and not providing them opportunity to get their licenses renewed has been a topic of consideration and always a matter of debate. So what could be the solution in this entire issue that we are talking right now? So the solution here, looking at different aspects of the matter, could be that transparency must be brought in while applying the executive orders, the laws, and whatever the due diligence aspects Government of India want these NGOs to be abide by. So if transparently they are being called on board, the matter is being discussed with them, and if the problem is clearly enshrined to them, tabled and being discussed, so definitely a mutual understanding based decision will come up, and that will be the biggest solution for the issue. Then accountability internally, NGOs, if they are working for the welfare of the people, there is no problem in filing of their reports, showing the statements of their expenses, showing the sources of their fundings and investments, and not getting involved or indulged in the activities which might hurt any sort of laws implied at that point of time. Then rational approach by Home Ministry, that it is not a matter of cancelling the licenses, it is a matter of killing an opportunity, because NGOs are working as an opportunity and ray of hope for the people. So these two things must be looked in a linear line rather than the a point of discussion individually or separately. Then real impact assessment on ground as per objective indented, that that what objective NGOs are formed for, that must be carefully analyzed, that social audit must be taken on board, must be considered, and through these aspects, combiningly and clubbing them together, we need to make an assessment that whether the serious infringement of law was found within the actions and approach taken by the NGOs or not. In the name of foreign contributions only, outrightly cancelling the licenses is not a problem. Solution to the problem could be a short-term solution, but in the long run, people will be affected, because the welfare is an objective given in the directive principles of state policy, and under right to life, the horizon or the broadened such a way by Supreme Court that right to life covers almost everything, and it is not possible for government to provide solutions, supplies and deliveries of any of the aspects of their developmental actions to the ground level or to the every nook and corner of the people, provided there are limitations and of course the obligations of the country in terms of funds, functionaries. So these NGOs must not be killed as an opportunity which is working right now at the ground level, because we have seen that one NGO, Bachpan Bachao Andolan, its founder has won a Nobel Peace Prize shared with Malala Yousafzai in 2014. So this is a great example that whether in the name of due diligence, an opportunity for the people is being killed or not. So that's all for this NGO topic. So friends, next in the line to be discussed is USA angle in the bilateral relations of Ukraine and Russia. So there is a confrontation, and it is very much in news nowadays that what is the issue between Ukraine and Russia, and why USA is coming into the scene, and Russia president and USA president are talking for such a long conversation on the international hotline, and what they have been discussing, and what could be the problems and prospect of this entire domain, and how can India look into the matter, and what could be India's approach. So Ukraine position, as you know friends, Ukraine is located at the easternmost border of European continent. It is sharing a major vertical border with the Russian western part. Ukraine was a member of Soviet bloc before 1992 Soviet USSR disintegration, and after that Ukraine was, according to Russia, was inclining towards the European Union countries and European Union institutions, be it European Union Development Bank, European Union International Foreign Policy, or whatsoever in that situation. So 2014 is actually being considered as a watershed movement between the international relations or geopolitical situation of Ukraine and Russian paradigm. What happened in 2014 was that pro-Russian Viktor Yanukovych, he was removed from the power. He was removed from the power, and he was pro-Russian. And according to one report from BBC, that Russia provided a safe passage for his escape. So in 2014, when Viktor Yanukovych was removed, Russia's interest, Russia found that it is being compromised in Ukraine. So what Russia did, Russia annexed Crimea. Russia annexed Crimea in 2014 because in Crimea is basically the southern peninsula or an island located south of Ukraine. And in Crimea, almost 90% of the people, they were Russian speaking, and the culture was absolutely similar to Russia, because of course all the East European nations or states who used to be part of USSR Soviet bloc, they will definitely be sharing so much of similarities between their cultures and Russian cultures as major, because the major culture was Russia, and it has been remained there for almost hundreds of years. Then post 2014, what happened, that Ukraine and European Union situation changed. That means that European Union tried Ukraine to bring them within its camp, within its strategic thinking, and Ukraine started activities or taking the philosophy of European Union towards the Russian state. Of course, Russia would never like it, because Russia here considering itself as a major philosophical setup, that Ukraine cannot go against it because it used to be a part of Russian thought process and system. Then NATO forces, after 1995 or 1997, NATO forces tried to switch or to take their armies and their battalions from native places like Latvia, Estonia, Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, and started planting it near Ukrainian border and slowly slipping the forces into Ukrainian land. Of course, this action would disturb Russia like anything. So now what is the situation? Why this topic is being discussed at a very louder pace in international media? Because Russia has deployed along the Donbass region more than 1 lakh military personnel, and deploying such a huge big number of military personnel along international border is never a good sign, because NATO forces and Russian forces are about to confront each other face to face, and that could be a disturbing element from the perspective of international peace, from the perspective of international trade, and from the perspective of stakeholders who have been investing their time, energy, money, and their futuristic potential within those two states or in the European Union blocks. And of course, NATO forces were a product of the or the outcome of Cold War period that went on for almost 60 to 70 years between Russia and USA. So now USA, being a great supporter of European Union and NATO forces, coming into the force, and within this context, that to avoid any sort of military engagement between Ukraine and Russia, and of course, like Ukraine backed by NATO forces, USA President Mr. Joe Biden, he spoke to Mr. Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, for 50 minutes on international hotline, and they tried to resolve the situation. Why? Because USA threatened Russia of putting restrictions, embargoes, breaking SWIFT international payments system for Russia, and preventing Russian Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, which is going to Germany. As you know, that Kazakhstan, being a neighbor of Russian Federation, is the world's almost one of the largest producers of natural gas, but it doesn't have any kind of supplying passage directly to any of the states of European Union, because Europe, lying in the temperate region, is always needing a big amount of or big volume of gas for its sustenance and in the daily life and commercial usages. Here, the Kazakhstan gas is being supplied to the Western European regions through the Russian Gazprom company. So this Russian Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, which is actually going to Germany, Latvia especially tried to threaten the sustenance of this gas project. But now what Russia is doing, because Russia was a main member or main stakeholder in the Cold War, and Russia would never accept such embargo restrictions or any kind of threats, especially coming from USA. So Russia demanded that if any such action was taken by United States of America, then USA would be sole responsible for creating 1962 like Cuban Missile Crisis situation back in 2022, because this period is going on. So 1962 like Cuban Missile Crisis, it actually created a nuclear war like situation between these two nations, right? So this paranoid situation which is actually existing between Russia and NATO backed Ukraine, and of course it has a great support of United States of America, that might change the entire geopolitical equation within the world again, and world would never want that. It is not at all great or feasible for the international peace. India's, and if we talk about India's interest would be at stake. During 1970s 80s, British Prime Minister Mrs. Margaret Thatcher, what she said, that we want Russia out, USA in, and Germany down. Carefully listen to these three words said by Ms. Thatcher. Carefully, you can quote these words, that Russia out, USA in, and Germany down. So this entire situation actually showcase the philosophical ideologies of European Union NATO forces towards Russian Federation or Russian as a state, because this capitalist and communist or socialist ideologies have always been in confrontation with each other. So this thing was discussed over the hotline, that this Donbass region might force USA to put restrictions and embargoes like situations against Russia if Russia is not taking its military back, and if it try to play with the sovereignty of Ukraine as an individual nation. So this thing would definitely hurt Russia. And also when in 2014 Russia captured or annexed Crimea, so during that time also this membership of G8, group of 8, was changed, and Russia was actually given and expelled from that membership. So this is the situation here going on now. India and Ukraine, if we look at the perspective of international relations of India with these two nations, so you will find that India and Ukraine started their embassy relations in 1992, and Ukraine is the second largest trading partner after Russia in Soviet bloc. For India, it is the second largest international trade partner. So you can see that India has to take a very careful stand when it comes to its opinion, or when it comes to its own commenting in the UNO or at any other international forum. So, and Ukraine is also important for us because Ukraine supports Kashmir resolution as per Shimla Agreement, and Shimla Agreement favored Kashmir situation or position in favor of India in 1972. And Ukraine recognizes India's potential role. As you know that India is seeking a permanent membership within the International Security Council, which is a membership of permanent 5. So India is wanting, and Ukraine and world support for India is absolutely mandatory and highly important. So Ukraine recognizes India's potential role in United Nations reforms. Then joint business council meetings of Ukraine and India, that actually gave boost to trade relations of India's exports like tea, coffee, spices, $500 million plus pharmaceutical supplies from India, and silk, jute, etc. to Ukraine. And also India imports equipments, chemicals, machines, goods, engines, etc. from Ukraine. So you see that to and from India's potential for Ukraine and vice versa state, both these states are sharing a great relation from the perspective of trade, from the perspective of strategic support, and from the perspective of international support. India is seeking to find a permanent seat within the United Nations Security Council. And if we talk about people-to-people ties and science and tech relations, when in 2005 India's ex-president late Dr. Kalam visited Ukraine, he said that Ukraine has immense potential in the field of science and technology, and India can actually take good benefit out of it. Had India and Ukraine been working earlier, it would have been great. Otherwise, the potential available at present, he said it in 2005, could be well explored, and therefore Ukraine's position for India is absolutely important. In the same context, Russia and India have been strategic partners since 2000, and Russia has been a great supporter for India, especially when China's equation was not very well post 1962 war. So Russia provided India with the military equipments, machineries, strategic supports, and due to the socialist approach, like India's constitution is well defining these, or it's mentioning that India will be socialist too, while its approach when it comes to the welfare of the people. And Russia's support to this approach is absolutely amazing and fundamental for building up these two great nations connectivity. And of course Russia has been a backup or always have been backing the international forums actions, actually what India has always taken in. For example, declaring Azhar Masood as international terrorist, Russia supported India's resolution. And also India is seeking a permanent membership within the council. Russia is also supporting that aspect. So here Ukraine and Russia almost sharing the same international equation with India. So what could be India's stand within this aspect? What has been always the India's stand is that through dialogues and discussion, all the international issues could be resolved, and this is what India has been trying to resolve at the level of Pakistan when it comes to Kashmir rule or the Indus Water Treaty aspects. So here that it is a bilateral issue, and Ukraine and Russia must resolve it carefully through talks and dialogues, and European Union must save itself from bringing NATO forces, especially within the Ukraine land, and making it confronting Russian forces, because it would not solve the problem. Rather, it will only complex the situation, which is very sensitive at the moment. And United States must take a neutral approach for the world peace, and United States should look into the internal areas where its more concentration is needed, especially in the times of COVID. So all the countries foremost duty or obligation at the moment is of saving people's life, rather getting into another aspect of Cold War or any kind of nuclear confrontation that might take place within this context. So that was all about Ukraine and Russia and the role of United States of America within the issue.